Chapter 1. Your Highness. The city market was full of aggressive, shoving, loud people. As my family advisor and I were out and about for an afternoon stroll through the noisy and ferocious market crowd, the family advisor stopped, glanced at me, and asked,
Prince Wambbey, is it wise to stroll the city market without any guards?
I replied,
Come now, Ramos. Do you think any of these people would attack us? These are our people.
Ramos smiled at me and continued to walk by my side, but on alert for any trouble afoot. As we continued walking down the city market, a warrior and friend of my father's army standing near a stall, examining a sword, happened to look my way, locking eyes with me. He threw the sword powerfully my way at an undetectable speed while grinning, yelling,
Catch, Your Highness.
Stepping towards the side, grabbing the sword hilt and stopping just in time. At the same time, the tip touched Ramo's nose. I stared at my friend Kanish, laughing.
Nice throw, but I think a woman could have thrown it better.
The merchant yelled at Kanish in anger.
You big brute! That sword is not a toy!
Kanish stared at the merchant and replied,
Mind your tongue. You stand before Prince Wambbey and a jaguar warrior.
Unfortunately, he is right,
uttered Ramos. I looked at the merchant and walked over, pulling out 5 gold pieces.
I'm sorry for my friend's rudeness. Should this be enough for the trouble he caused?
The merchant looked up at me with a smile ear to ear with missing teeth.
Ah, yes, Your Highness.
While bowing, he thanked me. Kanish looked at me, laughing following these words.
That pathetic sword isn't worth 2 gold pieces. Yet you give him 5?
I looked at Kanish and stomped his foot hard. He screamed in pain. Ouch!
That's for throwing a sword at me. And that's for almost cutting off Ramos' nose.
We both looked at each other for a brief moment and burst out in laughter. Kanish then turned to Ramos, bowing with an apology.
Sorry, Ramos. I just wanted to keep Prince Wambbey on alert. You know, just in case he intruded, he passed me to him.
Ramos looked back at Kanish with a stern look, then turned to me and said,
Come, Prince Wambbey. We have very important tasks ahead of us today. Nefis Chintul?
Kanish bowed. We then turned to head in the direction of the royal palace. As a kid, I often remembered scaling the palace walls with Kanish, racing to the top to see who could climb the palace first. I always win. At the top was a jade statue of a jaguar figure, our nation's sacred guardian animal. Now entering outside of the palace gates, 4 palace guardsmen were standing. They stood tall, firm, staring boldly at Ramos and me, followed by a bow. Your Highness. Ramos waved his hand in a gesture to open the gates. As they opened the gates, a voice traveled from behind us.
Big brother!
I turned around, knowing exactly who the squeaky, high-pitched voice belonged to. It was my youngest, adorable sister, Princess Leona. Ramos smiled and said,
Ah, Princess Leona. How are you this magnificent evening?
Leona replied,
Tula and I had went butterfly hunting. I caught the most beautiful butterfly. See?
Leona raised both of her hands, releasing a jade-colored butterfly. The butterfly spread its wings and gently flew, nesting in my hair on the top of my head. Leona ran up to me cheerfully, clapping and smiling.
Big brother, the butterfly landing on you means you're gonna fall in love one day.
Oh? Let's hope not, Leona. Warriors are not meant for that kind of life. Warriors are destined for battle and glory.
Leona looked at me angrily and cried out,
That life is rubbish.
Another voice came from behind me mockingly.
Yeah, brother. That lifestyle is rubbish.
I recognized the mocking voice that belonged to my other sister, Princess Chula. She tossed one of her battle daggers at me. I caught it in midair and pulled it to my face closer to examine the blade. It was stained with blood.
Sister, whose blood does this belong to?
She smiled and replied,
An elder jaguar. The hunt was 3 strenuous days of no food, water, and armor.
She devilishly smiled at me, followed by a mocking tune.
So, brother, have you hunted your jaguar yet? You know you're not allowed to be called a jaguar warrior. By hunting ritual rites, of course, brother.
Ramos intervened.
Excuse us, Your Highness, but we must be off. The Emperor has summoned Prince Wambbey on a very important task, And we must.
I interrupted Ramos with a bold reply.
Beautiful sister. By rights, it's really the battlefield that decides you're a jaguar warrior, not hunting an overgrown cat, especially an old tired one.
Tula's devilish grin grew more and more.
Then perhaps, brother, you'd show me how it's done, and go for a hunt of an overgrown cat that's in its prime.
I looked at Tula boldly.
Perhaps I will. And I don't need 3 days to hunt one. I can find one in 2 hours.
Ramos pleaded with me.
Sire, I must object. Keeping the Emperor waiting isn't very wise.
I stared at Ramos and back at Tula while tucking the dagger at my side and responded to Ramos.
Well, Ramos, stall him for me. While I bring back a jaguar pelt, all I need is 2 hours tops.
Tula laughed loudly, rolling her eyes while Ramos sighed silently, putting his hand over his eyes, mumbling to himself. I sped off in the direction of where the royal horse's stable was kept to grab my old four-legged friend Carmela. She was a tall black stallion horse with a beautiful black mane. She saw me approaching her with excitement, breathing hard, and lowered her head at my presence. I reached my hand out to pet her as she came near. I grabbed a saddle to put on her as I finished getting her ready to be ridden. I mounted her, and she raised her big front 2 legs in excitement. Ready to ride, I uttered the words, "Yeah!" We galloped into the direction of the city gates, headed in the direction of the jungle lands. We came near the south gate, guarded by many jaguar warriors. One of the warriors noticed me riding Carmela. He shouted, "Look, it's Prince Wambbey!" I replied,
Open the gates.
The gate's doors rose up, while Carmela and I galloped through the gates, disappearing from the warriors' views with a trail of dust to follow. We journeyed deep into the unforgiving Amazon jungles. The sun was out scorching and beaming down upon Carmela and me. Being in this dangerous heat, I decided to get off Carmela to give her a break to rest. I grabbed her by the rope wrapped around her neck to pull her along. Walking a good distance, we stumbled upon a small lake that seemed safe to drink. The water looked clean and clear. I decided to tie Carmela up to a nearby tree within reach of the lake to refresh herself with water as she pleased. I started to journey on foot deep into the humid, dirty jungle. I thought of Tula and how she patronized me. I wasn't going to stand for failure or let her out-hunt me. I started to jog a little bit, jumping over a few logs and watching my footing. I slowly came to a halt of a dead carcass that belonged to a warthog. The rib cage was broken and open. All the insides were devoured and half the body. It was one thing that could have done this. It had to be a predator animal. I began to smile with cockiness. I prayed that it was the jaguar and that it was also an elder one in its prime, full of strength and rage, so that I might challenge it to have its head. It couldn't be far from its meal of prey, I thought to myself. Pulling out the dagger Tula threw me, I walked around the footprints in the dirt, tracking it to a giant tree with a hole into the tree covered by giant leaves. As I crept up slowly, my breathing began to shorten to quiet me. As I came near the den, my footsteps got lighter to mask my sound. A squeaky sound came from the den. I removed the giant leaves cautiously upon unveiling the leaves. To my surprise, it was a black baby jaguar cub. The cub was trying to roar in a cry while nibbling on its paw. I quietly covered the den back and stood up. I paused for a minute, feeling like I was being watched. My instincts told me to turn around, so I did as I turned my head slowly to the left. My body quickly followed. I was frozen in fear of what my eyes were staring at. It was the mother jaguar. She stood tall on all 4 feet, with fierce-looking teeth and sharp, dripping salvia, eyes drowned in anger. We were face to face, staring at each other in our eyes. She roared a ferocious roar, opening up her mouth wide. I could smell the smell of death on her breath. She raised her right paw to strike at me, but I quickly raised my arms to block the heavy paw coming my way. She knocked me off my feet into a tree. My back and head hit the trunk so hard to point, I bounced off the tree trunk, landing on my hands and knees. I quickly raised my head to see where the mother had gone, but she was out of sight. I pulled the dagger out to defend myself. I looked in every direction to see where she had gone. I stood quiet. My instincts again told me to turn around. But this time I hurried and kicked in the air, connecting my kick to the mother's surprise attack from behind. I knocked her in the head. She shook her head, trying to shake the dizziness caused by the impact of the kick. I thought maybe that was a mistake because it only enraged her. She let out a roar so ferocious she went berserk, snapping and clawing all over the place to get me. I dodged, jumping back, carefully choosing the right time to strike with the dagger. As I pulled it from my side while I was in midair, my mind went to the memory of the baby jaguar. I thought to myself, she only wanted to protect her baby. Why should she have to die for that? It wouldn't hardly be considered anything to boast about. I decided to put the dagger away. Not wanting to kill the mother, I picked up a huge tree branch, waiting for the right moment to attack the aggressive mother. I saw an opening as the mother paused for a brief moment. I swung the branch as hard as I could, but she caught the branch in her jaws. She clamped onto the branch and snapped it in half, biting down hard on the branch. At that moment, I was in fear, so I ran knowingly. She was right behind me on my trail. I started to increase my speed, jumping over boulders and fallen trees. I was getting close back to where Carmela was located. I didn't want to lead the ferocious mother back to Carmela. Surely she would have ripped her apart, so I ran opposite where there was an edge of a cliff where a powerful waterfall of a stream led to a lake. I planned something crazy, but the timing would play a major part in this scheme. I ran faster and harder, approaching the edge of the cliff. As the mother was right on my heels, I could hear her breaths growing aggressively. She was so close. All she had to do was jump on my back. I would have been moored to death in the nick of time. I jumped at the end of the edge with the mother behind, jumping right for me and feeling her claw right on my back while pulling out my dagger, slashing a vine off a tree. I swung around the vine. In contrast, the mother fell into the powerful stream of water, landing back on the edge of the cliff on her hands and knees. I turned around to check if the mother was okay. She climbed out of the water, shaking off the water on her fur. I felt relieved while collapsing on the floor. I felt a sharp pain on the outer flesh of my back. I could barely stand as I tried to lift myself up. I fell back to my knees. I happened to glance at the ground and noticed a pool of red liquid underneath my knees on the ground. It was my own blood. I thought about how lucky I was to cheat death and how close the mother almost got me. I picked up a tree branch to hold myself up for balance. I knew I needed to get back to Carmela. It's been over an hour since I tied her up close to the lake. I limped my way through the woods back on the trail to where Carmela was left. Getting close, I began to feel relieved to hear her panting and stomping on the ground as I limped close to her. She began to wag her tail in excitement and joy at seeing me. She bowed her head for me to pet her, so I rubbed between her ears to comfort her. She seemed alarmed at the sight of me being wounded. She lowered her back to allow me to climb onto her. I grabbed the rope around her neck for balance to saddle up, but the scar on my back widened. I could feel the blood running down my back. I directed Carmela back to the city gates. It was a rough ride, but more painful, because I returned empty-handed with only a battle scar. I thought Ch1 wouldn't allow me to live this down.
Zinda